Дамы и господа, градостроитель, ведущий преподаватель архитектурной школы «Марш», модератор сессии Надежда Нилина.
Ladies and gentlemen, urban planner, program leader of Architecture School March and moderator of the session, Nadezhda Nilina.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to introduce our panelist, Marat Khushnulin, Deputy Mayor of Moscow for Urban Development and Construction. Fadi Jabri, General Manager of Nikken Sekkei in the CIS, the Middle East and North Africa and Japan. Diego Di Ponte, Partner and Technical Director of Systematica, Italy. Denis Vlasov, Head of the Design Studio for Transport and Road, Research and Design Association of the State Unitary Enterprise. Eldar Arudzev, Deputy General Director of Mos Invest Stroy. Alexei Zotov, First Deputy General Director of OAO MKZD. Gunter M., Head of Road and City Mobility Department at Siemens, Germany. Mikhail Blinkin, Director of the Institute for Transport Economics and Transport Policy Studies of the High School of Economics. I have a short introductory remark. On behalf of the urban developers, I would like to say that we have quite a complicated situation with traffic congestion. But we have the metro underground system, which is one of the major sightseeing in the city. And this is also established the bar for all the architectural designs. We also have the historical ring or the circle of railway station, and they have near the railway squares. Here we had the first multifunctional transport interchanges. We have excellent examples of Belaruskaya Square and Belia Square. We have transportation hubs for rapid trains, for metro and commuter trains. Kurskaya and Kievskaya metro are in the proximity to those railway stations. Paveletsky railway station and some other railway stations were located in the center of the city, and the market economy generates impulses where the public transport should be located. And by the way, transportation hubs have an important potential for the development. We don't need to look at the experience of other countries. Their reality tells us what to do. But our railway stations, from the point of view of the urban development of the city, ensures the convenience of transportation, but we are losing aesthetic value, and such railway stations do not attract only passengers, as you know. But it's important to make sure that all the railway stations are a real attraction for people, and it's an enjoyable way of transport. Transportation hubs is the possibility to create new public frame for the city, the new system within the public transportation system. Transportation hubs could be the new centers of the city, and if well planned, they could give an impetus to innovations, and to the appearance of the functional, multifunctional districts. Transport interchanges could provide different changes, and they could also make the living more comfortable and convenient. They can help to improve the transportation conditions. They can become the key elements in the development of urban environment, where priority is given to pedestrians and where people can enjoy a better transport. Now I would like to give the floor to Marat Husnulin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The word transport hub has become quite popular in recent years. But not all of us understand why we need transport hubs. But today I would like to explain what the role of the transport hubs for the city and what the city does in order to develop this area. At the previous session, I told you about the spatial development of the city, where I mentioned that the transportation hub is a very important place which unites different types of transport. We have lots of railways, we have metropolitan stations, which are not well integrated into the city environment. We have a well-developed on-land transport. How can we bring this all into one system, and how to generate benefits for people, for the city, for the guests of Moscow? For this purpose, a special program was developed on transportation hubs. Now I would like to show you several numbers. So when we planned the transportation hubs, we decided to take into account not only Moscow, but Moscow region as well. So the Moscow region should have about 390 different types of transport hubs. As for Moscow, in Moscow we're going to build 273 hubs. 192 of them will be the capital hubs. 81 hub will be just one-level hubs. What are our objectives in this program? First, we believe that transportation hubs will help us to reduce the travel time for people. We want to make sure that the passengers can quickly change from one transport to another transport. And our passengers should have the best way of transport, and by doing so, our passengers should have less time for going to the specific destination. Today, when we report on our successes, and in fact we're rapidly developing city, and the recent situation shows how the city has been developing, we have quite good indicators, but at the same time we have another indicator, a bad indicator. This is the time which people spend while traveling to their destination, when they go to work or somewhere else. Therefore, we need to adjust logistics. We need to provide more varied modes of transport for people to reduce the time. Since we're in northern city, as you know, it's snowing now, and the day is fewer than 8 hours. I mean, the light day is fewer than 8 hours. Therefore, we should make those transfer interchanges comfortable and convenient. The mayor said that we should have a comfortable and convenient for life city, and the city could not be comfortable for living and convenient for living if the transportation system is not convenient for people. Therefore, we need to make sure that our people feel comfortable and convenient when using transportation modes. For us, transport hubs is also an urban development solution. If you look back at the Moscow's history, we had industrial areas, and blocks of apartments were built around the industrial areas. It didn't take much time to people to go from work to home, but you know that Moscow has been developing very rapidly, and on the one hand, we have lots of jobs in the center, in the downtown of Moscow, and on the outskirts of the city we have residential areas, but we would like to improve the accessibility, walking accessibility of the city. We need to develop the city in such a way so that people could walk to the place of their work or to go to parks and back home. Therefore, we focus now on the urban development of areas around transportation hubs, because if we focus now more on good real estate around transport interchanges, then we can reduce the traveling time for people. This is an important aspect, and I would like to draw attention to this aspect. And there is one more factor, that transport hubs generate income. If we have a look at today's transport hubs, unfortunately, especially in industrial areas, unfortunately, these are one of the worst territories which which do not generate anything good apart from problems. There is no development in those areas. Therefore, the transport infrastructure, including transport hubs, should become the drivers of development, including these depressive areas that could increase, on the one hand, tax collection, because the tax revenue is necessary for funding our social programs, and we are obliged to support high level of social guarantees. So we developed the large-scale program. This program was approved by the mayor. According to this program, we have the following indicators. Out of 192 hubs, we have already made decisions on 156 transfer hubs. For 98 transportation hubs, we already identify where they should be located, and about 8 transportation hubs passed public hearing and people approved of their construction. And during the next year, our major task will be to design transportation hub and to get approval from people. So this is our major task of our organization and Moscow Architectural Institution. So we identified 3 responsible operators. This is Moscow Metropolitan, this Moscow Metro, Mosinj project. Then here we have 14 projects, the small ring of railway roads. 32 transportation hubs should be built here, and also 43 transportation hubs should be built by joint stock company RV Metro. Here you could see the slide with this looks like a garland. 61 kilometer, 28 stations. These are our plan. 17 intersections with the radial lines of the metro station, 7 intersections with the radial rail lines, and 2 ring rail lines. Another quite important scope of work includes the new line Улица Novatorov-Stolbovo. So from Улица Novatorov Street to Stolbovo, there we are going to build 8 stations, and the total length of lines will be 18 kilometers. So this is absolutely new line of metro, which will go to the new territory. We expect that investors will join us now. We are negotiating with Chinese companies and with some other companies. We want them to help us to build these stations, the transportation hubs. As when we discuss such large-scale projects, especially when the transport construction programs that we have in the targeted investment program amount to more than 1 trillion rubles. These are huge amounts of money, and for further development, we need to have a permanent guarantee that we will have enough money in our budget. We cannot start the construction work and we cannot cancel the work or terminate the work unfinished. Then another project includes the Moscow Ring railway. This is the mega project. This is one of the brightest examples how the existing railway infrastructure is integrated and is turned into the light rail roads. There will be 6 stations where you could make the change to the radial located stations. 32 transport interchanges are going to be built. So the project has been thoroughly developed, and we have already designed solutions, engineering solutions. The concepts for most of the stations have been already approved, and I believe that Moscow will have 54 kilometers of light rails, and passengers can use them in the future. As for the urban development potential, it's quite high. We work very actively in this field, and every week we inform the mayor about our works to identify the financial sources. So if we take the... And by the way, the city finances the transport infrastructure from the budget, and all the rest things should be financed by investors. So we have those transport interchanges that are going to be built at the expense of investors. We're going to conduct several tenders and to attract investors. So we want to have such a schedule that every month our investors could have a new project. More detailed information you can find in our detailed materials, information materials that you can find here in this forum. All people who are involved in the work and construction of transport interchange are here. We have people responsible. We have also the deputy in the Department of Construction, and we have a team of experts who work on the implementation of this program on the construction of transport interchanges. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Marat. I think we should listen to 2 more presentations now, and then I will open the Q&A session. Now I would like to give the floor to Fadi Jabri.
Уважаемые дамы и господа,
Dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, and the lovers of Moscow, those who love Moscow. I represent here the Japanese company. Therefore, we will go to Japan now and have a look at several examples which I believe will be quite useful for Moscow. By the way, when we discuss transport hubs, we should always think about agglomeration, about the city. Tokyo managed to unload, to remove the burden on the city using decentralization, and it managed to address the problems of Tokyo, of this mega city. This slide shows you that the population of Tokyo is about 40-something million, but only 30 people live there. But you see that more people live in Moscow than in Tokyo, I mean in the very center of the city. And of course this is additional burden for the city. We should address the problems of the city and also the problems of agglomeration. And we see here 2 models. We see the model of the city sub-centers, the quite large sub-centers, and we see suburban sub-centers, which are closely connected with the city center. During several decades, this model has been evolving in Tokyo in the free market conditions. So what do we see? We see that the structure of Tokyo has about 13 pillars, 13 sub-centers, which are marked with red dots. These sub-centers are quite interesting, and they're always competing with each other. Each has its own features, and every center has quite a large passenger flow that feel quite comfortable when they're traveling, when they're passing by those centers. You could find here the Tokyo Center and the business center. Shibu is the center for youth. Then there are some other centers with the development of IT. It's quite interesting to compare. Well, you see, we now work in Russia, in Moscow, and very often we know that there could be restrictions, subtle limitations in terms of free space around railway stations or some stations. And here we should think how we can increase the free space and somehow connect all the elements inherent to this area. I had a look at Vykhina and Komsomolskaya stations. More than or about 2,000 people pass there daily. Shinjuku is the station in Tokyo. There we have 16 railway lines and metro lines. And about 3 million people can freely move there and can freely travel there. Speaking about pedestrian areas, here you could find quite an interesting example. You know that very often it's prohibited to build close to the stations, metro stations, but you could see an example of Prospect Mira, where the pedestrian area is above the metro station. But you know, when the weather is cold, it's not very comfortable. And here is another example, Tokyo Midtown. About 5-6 large buildings with the surface, with the area of 500,000 square meters is very comfortable. So this area is very comfortable and people can freely walk there without going outside. Such spaces are well designed and decorated. They're very beautiful, and this is a kind of bargain between the city and the private partners, because city wants to have a high quality of appearances. Those sub-centers compete with each other. And this is one of the reasons why such projects are of such a high quality. The barrier-free connection is important. The natural lighting is important for people not to feel underground or like in a museum. Here is the recent example. This is not from Tokyo, this is Osaka. Here you could see quite a large station, and as you see on this picture, there is the ground level and also the skywalk. This is another access, a barrier-free access to the station, and people can go from the station to the offices. All the buildings are interconnected. These are 4 towers, offices, residential areas, and hotels. It's very comfortable for people to walk between those buildings, among those buildings. And this is another slide which shows you transport interchange. You have about 280 interchanges, so there are different numbers mentioned all the time. I understand that you have a very ambitious program, and it's important for New Moscow to develop transport interchanges and new transport hubs. So you should develop one model in the area of New Moscow and then go to the center. Well, I noticed that Moscow is densely populated, densely constructed, but it's quite flat. If you have the skylight, then here I can draw attention to Seven Sisters, these tall buildings, and the Moscow city. But have a look at Tokyo. In Tokyo, we have quite a strong concentration of transport hubs that makes traveling time very comfortable and convenient. It doesn't take people much time to go from home to offices. So we should have a deeper look into such possibilities. I understand that there are some doubts about such projects, that people prefer going by cars, but if we have comfortable and convenient transportation routes and hubs, people won't use cars anymore. Here is another map which shows you the land plots. At the center of Tokyo, this is the red color, and this is like red square in Moscow. Shibuya and Shinjuku are the centers which are located 10 kilometers from the center, have also quite a high price of land plots. So as you see, it's important to have the balance in terms of prices of land plots. It doesn't matter whether they're in the center or in the outskirts of the city. So all the necessary financial structures for the projects should be in place. So such projects usually takes lots of time. I mean, the projects that you've seen in Tokyo, they take at least a decade to implement. Lots of participants should be involved in the project implementation, including railways, metro, roads, and public space, pedestrian areas, so not only at the ground level and above the ground level and under the ground level. We shouldn't forget about historical monuments which exist and the existing infrastructure, because we need to think about their relocation. And we should not forget about financial resources. We need to have necessary financial tools for implementing the projects, and of course we need the private capital, private equities. This concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you. And I would like to invite the next speaker, Diego Di Ponte.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me, and also for the possibility to include so many topics related to transport and mobility within this very dense agenda of conferences. As you can see here, transport is one of the top priority elements that has to be tackled by public administrations, and also from people perspective, from citizens' perspectives. And this is because mobility represents one of the essential response to the daily needs of relation. It's, in the end, a fundamental paradigm, a fundamental right of all of us. Nowadays, there are a quite large variety of different solutions, infrastructural solutions, as well as more, let's say, soft and demand management measures to tackle mobility and try to find out the best solution in terms of sustainability. But we believe that in the end, public transport and a very well integrated land use and transport planning is, in a way, unavoidable actions that has to be considered in order to ensure sustainability for our cities. And this is because it is within our cities that we are going to play a fundamental match, environment and energy match for the future. It is a kind of laboratory where many different kinds of tests can be, in a way, performed to see what is the most suitable way of approaching mobility problems. As we said, urban land use framework as well as mobility systems are two aspects, very tightly interrelated aspects of a same planning process. And as we said before, the mobility and these morphologies mainly dependent on the nature of the functions, the locations, and of course the dimension of new functions and new polarities. And in the other end, the success of any kind of new intervention and urban operations is partially dependent also on the overall accessibility level that multimodal transport networks can provide. To this end, and to this regard, of course, transit hubs represent the most iconic reference and for sure an ideal point of convergence of these two dimensions, because nowadays transport hubs are regaining their urban role, a new identity within the urban fabric. And as we said before, they will become most important drivers for new planning, let's say at urban level, metropolitan level. And based on this information, we wanted just to analyze some ongoing and past projects to see what might be a quite open and flexible framework of analysis, a multimodal framework of analysis, which is based on three different dimensions. The first one, the primary one, of course, is the functionality of our nodes. And as you can see here, we summarize some important aspects that we have already seen part of them, like the operational level, of course, the overall functionality of a node as a transport hub, as well as the level of accessibility and the connectivity with the surrounding territory. This is a very important issue. And as you can see here, this is a video, a simulation. This is the final results of a pedestrian dynamic microsimulation that we developed to assess the effectiveness of a key transport hub in Milan, in Italy. It's a key transport hub which is a point of convergence of different public transport systems, from regional connection up to more local urban connection. And as you can see here, there is an important issue related, an analytical issues related to the functionality of a node, because it is expected that more than 45,000 people in 1 hour will pass through this node to get access to what is going to become the universal exhibition, the Expo 2015, that is going to be held in Milan on the next year. And one point of attention, for sure, is the different kinds of mobility patterns that people and visitors will have, because, of course, there will be people from all over the world with different way and behavioral patterns. And we took in the right consideration all this kind of information to model the station. The second dimension is architecture and urban planning, for sure a very fascinating aspect. And as we've seen before, this is the point of contact between transport and land use planning, as you can see here. For sure, as we have to think about the different functions that a transit hub can allocate, public-oriented functions are the most important one, with a well-balanced consideration also of what is a commercial driver, just to sustain, in a way, support the overall business model of the operation. To this regard, our past experience, planning experience of Le Grand Paris, the metropolis of the Greater Paris, was for us, for sure, a very important, a great opportunity to understand how big are the social and the urban benefits underneath a larger development of schemes, of transport schemes. And more especially in situations like this one, when you are going to have a new connection, a subway, automatic, completely driverless connection, ring-shaped connection that is going to put into a system different kind of land use and functions as new business districts, transport hubs, airports, and all the outskirts regions of the city, the most fragile, the most sensitive, of course. A similar case, always in Milan, and very interesting one in terms of financing, we believe, is the regeneration process of 7 different areas, brownfield areas, right in the city center, that are centered around existing stations, railway stations, as well as dismissed railway yards. And the innovative aspect of this is the deal between the private and the public, because the idea is that this deal has to be based on the possibility to reinvest real estate capital gains on the infrastructure systems, on the transit hubs, and as well on the railway networks in order to resolve bottlenecks, current bottlenecks of Milan system. The last, but most challenging dimension is, of course, management and economic framework. This is the most challenging one because this is so important to put into reality and implement such a very complicated and articulated schemes. I believe that among all the different aspects that you can see here, the specific planning framework for every single project and the introduction of value for money functions, as well as the consideration of the accessibility as a real value, as a real estate value that you have to consider in order to capture this value and reinvest it within the operation are key factors of success. To this end, I wanted just to briefly present you another case, always in Italy, in a smaller town, which is Turin. And this is a project. The name of the project is Variante 200, V200, that we supported, and which is mainly based on the regeneration of urban areas, two main urban areas. But the most important thing is that, let's say, on top of providing new houses, new jobs, high-quality realms, this project was able, thanks to a very detailed business model and delivery plan, to reinvest money on the public transport system, on the transit hubs, on a new subway line that is going to provide access and accessibility to the different new sites of a town. And this is just a portion of a business plan that is showing how the cash flow is working and how you can use, of course, what you are going to receive from the benefits, the real estate benefits, to reinvest in the transport systems. This is, of course, Moscow, and this is just a selection of different GIS maps that we normally developed in order to evaluate, to assess the effectiveness, of course, of transport schemes at the preliminary stage, I would say. This is, of course, the population density. This is the current situation in terms of public transport systems. This is the related public transport accessibility index levels that you might have nowadays and that you are going to have in the future thanks to the realization of new mega projects, like, of course, the Ring Railway. And just as last application, we wanted just to show you how massive are the effects and the benefits in terms of metropolitan scale accessibility benefits if any transit hubs are really well connected with the surrounding territories. This is just a point of interest that we selected. We selected just one, which is the existing station on Chesikova. And this is an existing station that is going to become one of the interchanges of the railway ring, not the most important one, just one of them. And this is the situation that you might have in terms of isochronal accessibility, which is just the portion of a urban territory that you can cover in 60 minutes by public transport and the population that you can reach in the same amount of time, as it is today, as it will be in the future when there will be the activation of a railway ring. And the last scenario, if you support this transit hub with a very well connected and managed feeding system to connect this point to the transit hub. Of course, transit hubs is a very complex and articulated issue, but we believe that a very well-balanced combination of transport effectiveness with the capability of provide at urban scale new services and new functions to the city will be a successful factor for this kind of operations. Thank you very much. I'm finished.
Thank you very much, Diego. Now we can start questions and answers. First question is to Marat Pusnulin. Today we have an international panel and the experience of what countries can be interesting for Moscow in terms of interchanges. We already started the Tokyo experience. Our experts visited Tokyo many times, and we already have one hub, transport hub, when the Japanese experts played an important role. I think it will be a good experience. We also have a very close cooperation with Hong Kong, and the MTR is a governmental company which is operating in the underground lines and is also constructing the property items next to the or on the existing underground stations. So it is a very interesting company. We're learning the experience, and we also carried out the professional exchange, and after the new we'll send some people for the training, because during the last visit to Hong Kong we agreed about it. Our professionals also looked at the transport interchanges in Shanghai, and they also got a training in a special institute of transport development in Shanghai, and they got very good ideas from China. We're also working quite close with Beijing, and Beijing has a significant experience in implementing these kind of projects. So almost with everyone who is dealing with this type of problems is our partner here. Did I hear you right? Mostly are cities from Asia, because the infrastructure is being mostly developed in the Asian cities. That's why it is so. Certainly, we also studied the European experience and we also invited European experts, but the real practice is now in Asia. Did I hear you right that all the transport interchange facilities are financed by the government and the urban development around the interchanges financed privately? The Moscow government financed the site clearance. As for the access roads, probably some utilities were loading all the entrances to the underground stations. This is something what we finance, and the rest is financed privately. How do you attract investors? At the moment, we are preparing the sites for the auctions, and we will carry out we'll start choosing investors next year, and the investors should come with the kind of urban planning project, because we give a brief to the investors to what he can construct, and the main question is how we can also accommodate all the traffic flows, how the interchange can be implemented in the really, for example, the length of subways, the width, and so where the subways should be underground or it should be overpassing ways. So we're currently preparing the number of briefs for our investors together with our Department of City Property, and we will start tendering them next year. It belongs to these transport interchanges or hubs, and what is about the facilities which will be transport oriented. For every single transport interchange facility, there are different opportunities for implementation. If the current facilities are really hindering the transport construction, so we can also buy out these facilities. If these facilities can be integrated into transport interchange infrastructure, so we can also pay to the owners. We can invite the owners to participate in this joint infrastructure. So we do work manually for each particular transport interchange every Saturday together with all the managers. I visit all the design transport interchanges, and we normally work manually on every single hub, on every single transport interchange, what the city can help and do here. That's why we managed to develop a significant amount of documentation. Our colleague from Japan said normally this project lasts for 10 years in order to gather 3 or 4 stakeholders for this project, because sometimes there is a conflict of interest when the landowners are also different. It is a really huge work, and within the last year, and I also gave you the figures, from 192 interchanges, we made 138 city development decisions, and these city development decisions will deal with the whole territory around these transport interchanges. We split all these transport interchanges or projects in 2 parts. First of all, these projects and the sites belong to the city. For example, an underground station in construction, so we identify the amount of work or scope work which should be done around this or for this underground station. And as for the city development, documentation is normally developed in a different way. railway. For example, some of the facilities can be located even 500 meters away or even up to 1 kilometer from the underground station, because sometimes if you want to construct and transport interchange facility, probably we need to change all the access roads, and so we will normally make a detailed plan and also describe what and who should do. Do we need to change the city development standards? And no, for these hubs, we have to change some of these standards because the current construction standards, they are really outdated. That's why we have a number of projects in order to change the current standards. And certainly the experience of our international colleagues will help us, because we take their standards and start adopting them to our realities. We have also our research institute of master plan deals with it directly. We also have a scientific technical council which develops all the standards, and afterwards the government can normally also prepare a document as a government order. Do you run any pilot projects using these changed standards? Everything is in progress, and a number of projects with our railway. When we agree to, for example, with the railway, some of the standards should be changed on the federal level. Some of the standards can be changed at the city levels. Today, the federal standard gave us the power to develop and to adopt these special technical conditions. For example, how the connection between two stations should be done. Now we can develop special technical solutions and can adopt them with the order of our government and use them in the practice. How the city development projects are linked to the transport interchange projects. As I already said, because everything what deals with the transportation infrastructure, when we construct an underground station, we always have other development solutions. For example, where the bus stop, where the subway or overpass should be located. And those parts which we will tender will always describe very detailed what the government in Moscow would like to get as a transport infrastructure, and the investor can also calculate how profitable it could be, and the upcoming tenders will show everything. Probably my more complicated question to you, I apologize for it. Because in the currently interesting economic situation, can it be that the investors won't be really interested and won't be able to implement their projects in those areas which are next to the transport interchanges or to the other projects independent? Certainly the economic situation will certainly have an effect, and many investors are really quite cautious and are waiting how the market is going to be and how the demand will be, especially those who are dealing with the so-called shopping or trading properties. But the most perspective one are the program of transport interchanges, because it is a guaranteed passenger traffic, the guaranteed customers, and a colleague gave us the Japanese experience. They have large transport interchanges, and the passenger traffic is quite comparable with our stations, which are not really integrated, not really improved. That's why I think the investors will be really interested, and I can say that some of the large investors are really waiting for these decisions. Some of them already started working on their projects. If they have some city development projects next to our transport interchange, they already offer during this planning phase in order to accommodate their projects in our transport interchange project. For example, example, Botaniический Center, Botanic Garden, underground station. The Pioneer company is developing a residential house next to the station, and they are willing to construct subways and integrate the residential house with the underground station. And all the decisions we can make at this level will be taken. And the economy is a cycle, and the transport interchange planning takes normally several years, and the account it could be quite a good tool in order to overcome the problems. It is a good question, because we are really frightened by the crisis and economic obstacles, but if we analyze the real estate market in Moscow, it shows a cyclic trend. If we have some economic difficulties, something gets worse, something gets improved. But however, the transport interchange projects are quite long. It is not the case when you construct a house and sell it fast. It's a very serious urban program. We can plan and prepare documentation for a long time. It is quite a natural process, because in the beginning those transport interchanges with a large passenger traffic could be demanded, and at the end, or probably in 20 years, the investors will be work even with every single hub, and they will be sold out. And I would like to ask a question about the passenger comfort. The question to Mr. Jabri: do you have in Tokyo, in other projects where you work, any monitoring system for the passenger comfort? Because we'll look at the infrastructural part. Well, it is quite important. These large hub centers with a large passenger traffic develop against the free market principles, and there is quite a significant competition among all these sub-centers. And if they don't attract people, they lose their competitiveness towards the others. And how attainable these centers are, this is actually the indicator for the comfort of the centers, and they compete for the residents, for the tenants who will be there, or probably for the people, for the pedestrians or passengers. In the past, first of all, it was the tenants and the employees, and now we also want people at the weekends to be there, so we can also visit the financial center in Tokyo on Sunday. We'll see also mamas working with their children, so they really function as social centers. Yeah, it is a matter of fact, all these gray office buildings are reconstructed, and they are all open for the public, for different events, and even the top levels of these office buildings are now accommodating restaurants. And these districts function not only during the week, but also on the weekends. So you create a 24/7 society. Yes, exactly. No, and this is the nice, comfortable environment. Diego, I have a more technical question to you. When you develop and transport interchange, and how you identify the size of this transport interchange, or hub, and can you also be flexible in order to change the size of your hub, or do you have very strict limitations for the project?
Element, because more especially for the demand, the mobility demand, because the infrastructure has to respond to the mobility needs of today in the short term, let's say, as well as in the long term. And the long term is very critical to be forecasted in a way. And therefore, one of the most important elements to be considered from the very beginning is what is the evolution and what might become the pressure that you are going to have in interchanges. Because in the end, a transit hubs is a combination of two different kinds of traffic. You will have, of course, the transits from one line, from one subway system, railway system to another one, but still it becomes, and it is, in the end, a point of access for the surrounding territory. And therefore, you really need to keep some kind of flexibility, and more especially, as we said before, if there is any potential or local urban regeneration, or the willingness to incorporate within the transit hub also new functions. These new functions will generate additional traffic to what is the transfer, what is the access traffic to the station. So all these components has to be considered in order to identify what is the most suitable dimension of the site, because of course then you can also decide to work on a vertical configuration. You have to use in a very effective way the spaces that you have. You might use, of course, different kinds of equipments, and you have to verify the capacity of your equipments, which are travelators, escalators, the waiting areas, turnstiles, and all these kind of elements that can create some problems within the station.
Но при транспортном моделировании вы
When you simulate the transportation, you normally forecast what is going to be when the interchange is commissioned. Thank you. Alexei, please tell me about your project experience in Moscow. When we were actually doing this Cherkizo hub, we calculated the passenger flow in traffic because during the peak hours we didn't have enough capacity for this passenger traffic. But I would like to tell about this hub the following thing. We use two main things. First, the functionality, and you can also see different function areas. This is a railway, underground, and a bus terminal, and the parking, and also new main roads which will also be there. These are the main essential elements which will generate the passenger traffic. But what is quite important that the station, metro station and the railway station are next to each other, because the Moscow railway circle used to be cargo one, and the second thing is actually the reintegration of this railway circle into the public transportation system of a city, where it can also transport up to 350,000 people in a peak hour. So, as already Merit said, because we need to make the crosses with all the railways, also with all the radial underground lines, so the passengers will get additional opportunity to make changes to get a better comfort. Even the change opportunities will be better. In Cherkizo, it is an integration of city and a city, because on the one side we have a stadium, a very well-known district. On the other side we have an industrial area which haven't been developed because it was limited in accessibility. In order where these two bridges we are going to construct, the people will be able to get access to this industrial area, so we'll be able to develop this industrial area. When we started planning, the owner of this industrial area, where you can see the road in blue, they were not really interested in this project, and as soon as we got this project, they started discussing with us how to integrate their land plot into this project. The second part of integration, it is the single ticket, where if you buy one ticket and you can use it for railway and underground and bus. And we really hope that it will be also useful for the radial railway lines, because in this case you will have a more comfortable change, and you have only one single ticket for your ride. And what is also important, this is the potential of the city when we develop this kind of hubs, when we don't have any road, when we don't have any opportunity to interchange, when we have an opportunity to travel from this point to any other destination. So the demand for this land will go up, and the price for the land plots goes up, so you can use any new solutions and implement the projects. Thank you.
Well, as for your model doesn't have a man, a person. Is it somewhere separately? Well, you know, we have a separate model for passengers who could go from metro to our station, who can make a change and use the services that we have, including parkings, because there we have quite a high flow of cars, and we have different special parking areas. It's a separate presentation, it's not here. And we calculated not only the load of the burden by different modes of transport, but also estimated when, how, at what time, and what's the potential. This was the main principle when we started designing this type of transport hubs. Well, you know, we have also plans. NIPI plan has, by the way, this organization was involved in this work, and this organization was calculated and estimating the passenger flow, the flow of transport, public transport and personal transport, or private transport. It was possible to prevent all this transport going into the center of the city. So it's possible to simulate the situation. So I have the question to NIPI again plan. Denis, design of and engineering of transportation hub starts from estimation of transport flows, and who is working with the passengers' logistics. And not only passengers' mobility is important, but we also need to think about people with disabilities. And another issue is the possibility to find the way and exit entrances. Well, you know, thank you for your question. Your question is very good, but it has different answers. I cannot say that development of transport hubs starts with transport flows. Here we work with MKZD. We work on estimating the intensivity of transport flows and passenger flows. So we collect this data, then hand over this data to our colleagues. It's possible to make the breakdown by types of passengers who use their private transport, public transport, so on. Among different complexes of micromodeling, but this is not advertisement. We take microvision or some other softwares, we can simulate the passenger flow situation. This is what Mr. Zotov told us about. And then we identify bottlenecks and we can make necessary adjustments. Here, we face the problem, which is quite acute as of today. Now, we do not have criteria to assess the quality of provided solutions. Now, the Institute of General Plan, Moscow Architecture, and some other organizations, it's high time to start making amendments to our documents. We need to introduce the best practices. First, we need such an indicator which will reflect the quality of passenger transport. It will help us to assess whether people feel comfortable in the transportation hub. And they will take into account different physical parameters such as speed, density of flow. So we have several metrics. I'm not going into details. And today we are going to follow international requirements, American requirements, but of course we need more detailed work and further review of best practices in order to improve the quality of services for our passengers. And the second thing, which is also necessary in order to help our passengers, is to have a special hierarchy of access, and this should be set forth in laws. Marat mentioned that we need to make people priority. Our hubs are for people, not for transport. It's not for the sake of transport. If you have a look at any foreign hierarchy, it's quite simple. First, it's a pedestrian, then a bicycle rider, then a high-speed tram, metros, and then different types of ground transport. I believe that in Russia we should have a different system. The first block is pedestrian, or a passenger. Here we need a special type of navigation as part of the transportation hub, and we should also provide services to people with disabilities or who are not very mobile. And the second group includes motorized vehicles. Here the priority should be given to the public passenger transport, ground passenger transport. Let's have a look at Washington, the city of Washington. As for the ground transport, about 15–20% use this transport. All the rest transport comprise pedestrians and private vehicles. In Moscow, it's 50–60%, and even 70% of people use public transport. Speaking about the hierarchy of access, the first, we should ensure the accessibility of public transport, and to public transport this will help us to address lots of other issues that we could face at the designing and planning phase. And we also set forth in our laws the priority of public types of transport, of taxis for drop-off and pick-up of passengers. And after that, we will have people using commercial transport and interception parking lots. That's it. And as for people who are disabled or who live not far from future transportation hubs, what is being done for that? Do you cooperate with other divisions of NEP and Plan, which works with the street organization? Yes, of course. We take a holistic view at the situation and at the development. Transportation hub is the model of the transport system in its miniature. Here we consider the system of different types of transport and the people. As for people, disabled people, of course, we take them into account, especially at the design phase when we design specific transportation hubs. Thank you. And the next question goes to Mr. Gunter M. Could you tell me how high technologies, smart technologies, and new technology help us to develop and monitor the development of hubs? Thank you for your question. In general, the major objective of transportation hub is to improve comfort for passengers. What is comfort for passengers? Comfort means timely information, reliable information. What kind of information could it be? For instance, what kind of transportation mode and what kind of transport departs from which platform and what time? Where passengers can buy different things, for instance. And if the person is expecting another transport, what kind of entertainments are around? Cinema, theaters. What's more, it's also important to ensure a rapid purchase of tickets and access to trains. To gather such information, we need special means, and we have intermodal platform or mobility platform, which helps us to collect necessary information. So on the one hand, we collect the information, collect the data, and on the other hand, we transmit this data to passengers. It's possible to implement all this using smartphones. There are special applications. I believe every person has a smartphone, and you can have the information very quickly. And using a smartphone, you can buy a ticket. It's also possible to install special panels, information boards in transportation hubs. So since you're involved into design of transportation hubs, do you take into account the best experience of other countries? I will try to answer your question. Thank you, by the way, for it. Well, you see, we are not designing transportation hubs. Our task is to do the spatial planning, to determine the stages of development, to determine the scope of works, and set the requirements to transportation hubs. As for the design of this transportation hub, this will be determined by those people who are going to implement this project. Here we use the international experience. And by the way, this program is based on successful projects of TOD, which were implemented both in Europe, in Asia, and in Northern America. And in North America, we prepared the leaflet, the booklet, where we try to reflect the most successful projects which should be replicated in Moscow. Unfortunately, I'm not the first who said that our legislative work is lagging behind the urban development. Existing standards and rules do not allow us to implement those solutions, which are really the best and the newest. Very often, this all is not reflected in our legislation, federal laws. There are simple examples to that, when it's impossible to give one permit to two sites. And such limits prevent us from the implementation of projects. For instance, when we have two sites and two owners who would like to integrate their sites and to implement one project, they cannot do that because of legislative restrictions. Or we have some other restrictions which are related to the roofing of bus stations. It's not possible to, or it's not allowed to make a roof over the bus station. For that, a special design should be made or something like that. In our projects, we try to take into account all such things, and we borrow the international experience. So we hope that when our facilities are built, the international experience should be taken into account at the design phase. At the end, I would like to say that, of course, we consider the international experience. We visited the largest transportation hubs, and we've seen different projects which were successfully implemented. We tried not to learn on mistakes. We try to learn on good things, because we want our city to look smart and comfortable. I want all of us to live in good conditions like people live abroad. And I would like also to thank Niki Sikey. Together with the representative of Nika and Seki, we traveled along the entire underground in Japan. We were in Suzuku, in different stations. The huge passenger flow is there, the huge concentration of people, the concentration of energy, passenger flows, but you do not feel discomfort. Despite of being a foreigner in the city, you feel quite comfortable and at ease. Thank you so much for this. And I hope we will manage to implement our projects even in a better way. So the main message that I can draw from all the speeches is that we need to make changes to our rules and standards, but these could be the result of the design work. We cannot change everything a priori. We should first identify the weak points which prevents us from doing something new, and only after that, after determining the problems that we have or the requirements, amendments should be made. Murat, I hope that this process is underway already, and this will imply feasible results that will help us to achieve better and more flexible rules. And the final question goes to Mikhail Blinkin. In the recent interview to Expert magazine, you said that despite of huge investments into transport infrastructure, Moscow won't become a convenient city for going by car. But if we have transport hubs, will it help us to resolve the current problems with traffic? And what kind of transport hub should we have for drivers? For drivers want to have a wish to use it. First, I would like to say that Moscow drivers do not have many options. Well, there are people who enjoy or who opt for traffic jams, and they prefer to drive than to go by public transport. About 27 square meters of asphalt, of public asphalt, is for every driver. And Moscow construction industry can increase the surface, this area, by just several centimeters. They can add to this number only 1 square meter. And those cities where it's comfortable to drive, mostly these are Canadian or American cities, each driver has about 200 square meters. I enjoy driving there, but it will never be in Moscow. It's our reality. Therefore, all the efforts we're discussing here means the creation of the good multimodal system, which first implies comfortable and convenient transportation hubs, which should be well planned. We should have a good transportation planning. We should have good urban design. This is aesthetics. This is architecture of the city. And the second thing, and we have already discussed it, includes information space. I would like to quote an excellent German transport expert, Mr. Gruber, the president of Deutsche Bank, who said a month ago at the International Forum in Berlin, he took iPhone in his hand and said that a girl and a boy who downloaded the application have more information than a dispatcher has in Deutsche Bahn 10 years ago. So these two things, comfortable transportation hubs and comfortable information space, will help us to change the city. So we have no other way out. Yes, there are happy cities which have choices, but we do not have a choice, unfortunately. So we are nearly at the end of our session. I would like to share a message with you. We should have one more speaker, Evgeny As, who is the Dean of Architectural School March, and he is also the founder of a pedestrian society. But 2 years ago there was a car accident. Unfortunately, he could not be with us, but he is feeling quite well. So the Pedestrians Association sent a message to us that the distance between transportation hubs should be the minimum. This is the opinion of passengers. The second wish that all transportation modes should be synchronized in the real-time and information space. This will help people to plan their trip, their itinerary before leaving the house. And then there was a proposal to change the name. Let it be not the transportation hub, but the transportation junction, something like that. So now I have to conclude the session because we have run out of time. There is a question that I need a microphone. Well, you see, we are short of time. Mr. Hans, you can ask the question during the coffee break. And I'll be really grateful for that to you. I invite everyone to go to the foyer for coffee break. Sorry, we have no time anymore. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all the panelists.